Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. Here is the information. Today's Catalyst is brought to you by the presenting partner, DRS, Digital Revenue Systems. Educate with elegance. Your facility deserves needs to be more static. Where screens speak luxury, digital signage designed to elevate golf, fitness, and wellness experiences. For more information, please go to digitalrevsystems.com. Very excited to have Junko Harkins joining us this morning. She is with the PGA of America. She is a player engagement consultant. She's been with the PGA of America for, I think she's in her 7th year since 2019. Prior to that, she was an assistant professional at a variety of different clubs. She's a graduate of Methodist University, and she's presenting this morning, and we're having kind of an extemporaneous conversation about work-life balance. Those of you that know, the Catalyst webinar series has been on the Southern California circuit for about 10 years. So this year, we've kind of streamlined the Catalyst presentations to be themed over a 2 to 3 month and a half period to theme the presentations. So if you were with us 2 weeks ago, we had Will Robbins on talking about developing your coaching business for the benefit of establishing a consistent work-life balance and getting the value getting your value in your instructions so that you could have more time for family. This week, Junko Harkins is going to join us as well. There's really no better person on the subject. You know, she's about to be a mother of 2. She's a golf professional. She's married to a golf professional. She's had a career in the service industry, as her husband has. Many of you know Blair at Rolling Hills. I believe you actually met at Rolling Hills. And so juggling that work-life balance is it's cliche in our society, but it's very relevant for golf professionals because it's really like a seesaw. It's like a teeter-totter. There is no Monday through Friday 9 to 5. 2 days off in a row is a luxury for us. You have to work harder to get the work-life balance you're looking for, and it's really easier to work 80 hours a week. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Junko, and away we go. Thank you, Junko, for joining us this morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me. And as John alluded to, I am your PGA of America player engagement consultant, and I do support Southern California, Northern California, and Aloha PGA sections. I have been with the PGA for now going into my 7th year, so believe it or not, just to give a little bit of background, this is the longest kept position for me that I've stayed in because I've found my passion. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we get further into our conversation. But I know many of you probably know me, and for those of you who don't, you hear me talk a lot about PGA Junior League and growing your programs. I really envision my position at the PGA to help all of our golf pros turn your passion for the game of golf into lasting professional success and personal success. So I know that's kind of a mouthful, but I think this conversation of work-life balance is really relevant in what I do. And by no means, I will say, like, I am no expert, I am not a pro. There are days where I struggle with this as well. So just please know myself, I'm very human. John, I know, can attest and relate, so this will hopefully be a very, really beneficial, and hopefully you can take a few nuggets out of it. Like I said, I am no expert. I'm not going to sit here and preach and say I'm really great at my work-life balance, but we'll talk a little bit about that. I am originally from the East Coast, for those of you who don't know, and I have worked at various private, high-end private clubs across the country, from Westchester Country Club, Sleepy Hollow, Riviera Country Club, how I first came out here. And yes, John said, I met my husband, Blair Harkins, who's the director of golf at Rolling Hills Country Club here in LA. Not necessarily at Rolling Hills. I did work at Rolling Hills for a hot second when I got pulled back from working back in the golf course or the green grass industry arena. I would say I was working for the SCPGA for a really long time as well. But anyway, we have a little bit of history, and Blair and I go way back and just reconnected when we started working together, and then of course got married now 4 years ago. And as John also mentioned, we're expecting our second baby girl in the next few months. So yeah, definitely figuring out ways of how to juggle all of that and being a full-time worker as well. And as director of golf, Blair is very busy at the club as well. And in Southern California, we never get a break, right? Yes, the desert is sort of seasonal, but in Southern California, we never get a break. So all of our golf professionals here, whether no matter what position you hold, John, you're a GM, right? Like you have so many events going on at the club all year round. There's no downtime. So of course, even as coaches, assistant golf professionals, like you are at work every day, all day. So that is also something I want to point out as far as my marriage with my husband. I think a lot of the ways that it works is because I understand the green grass side of things, and I understand the demands as a director of golf and how he needs to be at work certain times. And yes, we've had many conversations now that we have kids involved. The importance and what is important to us. So, that being said, Jeff, or I'm sorry, John, let's dive right into our conversation today. And my first really topic is really just about everyone wants work-life balance. Who doesn't want work-life balance, right? And Will Robbins' catalyst a few weeks ago was great. And I think one of the things that he mentioned was we don't do, and I totally agree because I'm at fault for this too. We're not very honest with ourselves when we talk about what do you really want, right? What's important to you? I think a lot of times when we have these types of conversations, like it's hard for us to be honest. And we should be more honest with ourselves, whether that does mean when you're looking at what your net worth is and all of those things. But um, really ask yourself, what do you want and what are your goals? What are you trying to do? And up until this point in my career, or in my life, honestly, my career was a priority. And whether I think Blair would be okay with me sharing this, but when we first, we got married and we started talking about having kids, and he was more adamant about starting a family sooner, I actually first said no. I was like, because I love my career way too much. So I've been very career driven. Obviously, things change once we decided to start a family. My priorities have changed, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So yes, right now for me, if you were to ask me in this moment, what does a good balance look like? What do I want? I want to have a successful career. I will, right or wrong, that will always be my first answer because I am very proud of what I've done so far as my career and my job position. But I also want to have family time. I'm gonna have another daughter, and I'm so excited for that. And it's already, even with one child, has been really hard to juggle that. And I obviously want to be a great wife too, right? So those are kind of my top three, I would say I really value my career, my kids, my husband, and not in any particular order. I guess I would say they're all pretty equal, but John, what about you? What's something that you really want? What are your goals?
Well, you bring up an interesting, you made a statement a moment ago, and it really opened my eyes to you having the spouse's perspective. Because it's like, you work for the PGA of America and you're a consultant. And I think at this point in your career, your hours are pretty manageable. Obviously, Macy's, I think four, is Macy four?
Three,
Okay,
three.
so she's three. You've got another one on the way. Um, I think you personally, and I don't want to overstep the statement, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have personally your work-life balance is pretty much in check. It's your husband who is at the whim of the country club calendar and the country club schedule and tournaments and his own playing. And like you said, you have the perspective of knowing what that business is like, so it makes it easier for you to have empathy for your partner. Where a lot of our partners in the golf business are remote, and the vast majority of our partners in the golf business are not in the golf business. So it's even harder for them to understand the demand that the service industry has. For me, when I started in this industry, I mean, I played decent golf in high school. I grew up locally here. I wanted, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I wanted to become a professional golfer, but it became very obvious. I was the same age as Tiger, playing in tournaments with Tiger and being a part of the SCPGA growing up. It was obvious at a very young age, probably 13, even before high school, that playing professional golf was not going to happen for me. However, I loved golf, so I wanted to do something that kept me close to golf. And so the New Mexico State had the PGM program. I learned about the PGM program. So it's like, okay, hey, they're going to teach you to be a golf pro. I thought that had something to do with playing. I had no idea. Even, I mean, we're talking even all the way up through graduation from New Mexico State. I still had no concept of this industry is a service industry. This is not a sports industry. Unless you are playing, which a very few, a very small percentage of us are actually playing. You count the A3s of the world and the all the other categories, your Mike Blocks and your Kyle Mendozas of the world that could actually make a living with their golf games. The vast majority of us can't. So I still had no clue upon graduation the service aspect of this game and the customer service demand that working in this industry was going to require. Even, well into me, graduating from New Mexico State and working as an assistant golf professional, ironically enough, here at South Hills is where I was. But I was here for 5 years as an assistant pro, and the first couple of years was a crash course, a very brutal and ugly crash course in, hey, this is a service position. This is like, no different than serving food, no different than serving hotel rooms, no different than, working on a cruise ship. So for me, and of course, I'm not a rocket scientist either, so I kind of learn everything the hard way, and I kind of get where I need to get through hard work, not through smart work. And of course, that's the antithesis of a good work-life balance. And it really kind of came to a head for me post-pandemic, deciding to leave the desert. You talked about the desert, and the desert really, like for a lot of us in the metro chapter that are on the eastern side of the metro chapter, we're talking like San Gabriel Valley, the western ends of the Inland Empire. You could make that drive. A lot of us golf professionals, I mean, I can name, talk about a work-life balance that, here's a whole segue to the commutes golf professionals make because there isn't golf courses and clubs on every single corner. So, I mean, I could mention a dozen guys, segue, not to get on a tangent, and it used to be myself as well, that have, an hour and a half to 2 hour commutes each way. And I live in Ontario, and I made that commute to the desert for 5 years, 86 miles each way from Ontario to Palm Desert. But it was worth it for me because it it really set the stage for the best work-life balance I had seen in my 25 years in this business in this section, where you know it's year-round pay, but from the summer months in the desert, and we all know the summer months in the desert aren't just the summer months in the desert. The summer is not June, July, and August. In the desert, the summer basically is the second week of May all the way to the second week of November, because your snowbirds start leaving and your Canadians start leaving the desert end of April, beginning of May. Before you know it, by the time Memorial Day rolls around in May, your club is a ghost town.
Yeah.
And it stays that way all the way through September, and then you close for overseeding. And then when people do start showing up in November, it's kind of a soft showing up because a lot of them go back to wherever they're from for the holidays. So it's like your season really is only January, February, March, and April, and it gets dark at 4:45 in the afternoon. So it's like the desert really lended itself to a guy, myself, who had four children, three of which that were all kindergarten, first grade, second grade. I got three young ones that are all in a row that are now 10, 11, 12, 9, 10, 9, 11, and 12. I don't even know the ages. But the decision to come here to South Hills was very impactful because really it's like I made a decision to, you talk about what do you really want? What I wanted to do is um, I wanted to make my way to an elite general manager position at an equity club. That's what I wanted. And I always wanted to get back to my home. And the San Gabriel Valley is my home. And South Hills is where I started my career. I didn't want to leave in 2001. Just between us, my leaving in 2001 was not voluntary, but it was definitely deserved. Uh, so my decision to come back here in 2020, right at the height, or the end of 2021, right at the height of post-pandemic golf success, people working from home, work-life balance being in the forefront, everything being gettable for everybody. You could have your cake and eat it too now, where you couldn't in the past, because I'm I have this perpetual image of myself as a 35-year-old golf professional, but I'm going to be 50 this year. I'm not 35. I've been around for a long time, and I've been in this business now for approaching 30 years. And I came up the hard way, not to poo-poo the way life is now, but I came up under golf professionals that, for the first 2 years, you didn't ask for a day off. You worked the schedule, you were put on the schedule to work. You didn't ask for a raise, you didn't ask for anything, you didn't ask for holidays off. You were a indentured servant to your PGA head golf professional because you wanted more than anything else to be him one day. And you were willing to do whatever it took to do that. And so there was no work-life balance. There was only work because this is a part of my identity. And ironically enough, all these years later, it seems to me, and it might just be my perception, that the most successful golf professionals out there, be it teachers, assistant pros, head professionals, directors of golf, general managers, even sales reps, the most successful PGA professionals I have seen from a career standpoint, there is no work-life balance. And it comes down to, like you said, Junko, what do you want? Well, they wanted career success, optimum to everything else in their life, and that's what went first. So the work-life balance is in check, and I like to consider myself one of those people. But my work life, there's no work-life balance. But as far as I'm concerned, it's balanced. I am really 80% work and 20% children, that for me, that's balance. That's the decision I made. That's what I want. And so it's balanced for me. But every waking moment I have off of this property is 100% dedicated to my children, and
Yeah.
obviously I work and I provide for them and so forth. But not to ramble though, but I'm glad you turned it over to me because it gave me an opportunity to share. But the work-life balance, it's not a 50-50 teeter-totter that sits in this balanced position. For the best of us that have a good work-life balance, it goes like this, and what goes down comes up, and it does level out. But if this is what you want, then that's your
Right.
balance. If this is what you want and you could keep it there, then that's your balance.
A
And I
hundred
think that
percent.
phrase has gotten polarized over the last several years. And, young professionals coming up in the business, um, and it's harder to grasp that concept. And from a managerial standpoint, like when I came up in the business, it wasn't about my agenda and what I wanted meant nothing. My employment and my service to my club meant everything. I was at the beck and call of what my head professional needed me to do. And that was the most important thing to me, was to get his approval and so that I could progress and one day be that. And it seems like now, not just in the golf profession, people in general, call it technology, call it post-pandemic, how convenient everything has become. Employers, you can't be that way anymore as an employer. I have to sell what we offer you as much as you have to sell what you offer us. It's not a one-sided thing like we're hiring you to do this job and this is what you're here to do, and what you need and what you want is not important because what you're doing is to do this job for us. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now it's like we want you to do this job for us, and for that we're going to do this for you, and you're going to
Right.
have 2 weekends off a month, and you're going to get consistent races, and we're going to pay for your education, and we're going to invest in you equally as much as you're investing in us. Perhaps
Right.
it's a better way for the world to work. I mean, certainly than the way it was 30 years ago, because the way it was 30 years ago, that chased a lot of people away from a fulfilling career in this industry.
Right.
Um,
And there's like a balance there in itself too, right? And I love what you mentioned about work-life balance. I think the assumption is always ever, that means work is 50%, personal life is 50%, and it doesn't have to be. And as you said, whether it's a teeter-totter, there's no right or wrong either. So I'm also here to say, don't be guilty if it is 80% work, 20% family, because again, whether you have a spouse, a partner, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, kids or not, right? Like as long as you can all agree and find that what balance works for you, I think that's the answer. And I know you said with my career, I sort of have maybe that good balance, but there are also times where, like I mentioned before, I am no pro at this. I would never sit here and say I'm great at it. Yes, I do. I think we're lucky that I am empathetic and can understand Blair's positions, but I will say as a female and as a mother, and kind of being like that default parent and being able to work from home other than when I'm not traveling on the road, which is a lot in this position, by the way, but um, I don't get to just sit home and twiddle my thumbs and sit behind a computer, right? Like me working from home can also mean I'm trying to get in, if that, a 40-hour work week. And these days with a child, it is very hard. I'll be very candid. I find myself working at 8 or 9 p.m. these days, just answering a few emails or whether even that's a schedule send, right? And that's a good tip for work-life balance. Don't tell people you're working past a certain hour, but yeah, like I'm finding that I'm doing more of that. Do I want to? Not necessarily, because I would like to think kind of that 8 to even 9:30, because yes, we go to bed pretty early, is like that's me and Blair time. Even if that means we're just sitting and watching mindless TV, I really like to spend that hour and a half with him, just for our marriage, right? Because and honestly, from like 5 to 8 is Macy time. Like we're both consumed with our daughter right now. So jumping right into just some of the ways that I think that, we all could create better work-life balance. Again, it's not 50-50. Just some examples that I've found maybe a little bit of impact to help myself is AI. And I know that's a huge hot topic right now all across all industries. And quite honestly, I think in the beginning, when AI first was starting to come out, I was one of those skeptics. I'm like, oh my goodness, AI is going to take over my job. Why technology is just amazing in that way, right? Like it makes you think that way. But the more that even the PGA of America has kind of invested and engaged with AI, and we've done some AI trainings, I've learned that you don't have to rely on it. It's not going to take over. There are ways that you can utilize it I like to think of it as it helps me be a little more efficient, right? And John, you mentioned this just a few minutes ago. Like, I don't think I'm a rocket scientist either. I tend to learn things sometimes the hard way as well, or the longer route, if you will. And I think with AI, it's helped me be efficient. And that's been one of my, honestly, just like goals in the last few years since becoming a parent of a 3-year-old. Like, how can I take advantage of the time that I do have? So AI is great. So whether you're using ChatGPT, I use Google Gemini a lot because PGA of America is just on the Google platform. And I know there's a ton others out there. Like if you have an iPhone, I know iPhone has now AI capabilities, and I'm sure the Samsungs and the Galaxies of the world do as well. So you can write emails faster, or typically what I've been using AI for is to help me maybe clean up some of my words in my emails, right? When I feel like, oh, that sounds really clunky. So using that actually, I've been my voluntary side of things in the industry is I've been part of the USGA's USNDP program, so I've been part of leading our team Southern California. The last few years, and last year was our first year doing a player development camp for all of our players, and I actually utilized AI to help me make an agenda, timing of it all, and also I've used it for drive, chip, and putt regional qualifiers out in Aloha section the last 2 years. We held it at Hawaii. We were doing the competition out on the golf course, so um, as many of you know, with drive, trip, and putt, it's usually maybe around the practice areas, and kids can easily walk to each station. The regionals out at Hawaii, since we decided to do it out on the three signature holes, which were right out on the ocean, we had to actually shuttle the kids. So even to just create a shuttle schedule, right? Like when I was thinking about it, I was first sitting there staring at a blank screen, a Google Doc, and I'm like, where do I start, right? And instead of me just spending hours on a shuttle timeline, I literally just went to ChatGPT or Google Gemini at the time and said, this is my timing, these are my tee times, what's the best shuttle times, right? And it gave me this graph and it kind of did the work for me. So you don't have to be great at it. Just make sure you can give good, requests into it, if you will. And it's supposed to support you. It's not supposed to replace you. John, have you had any experience with AI?
Well, I'm getting to be an old guy, turning 50 this year. So no, I've avoided AI largely in part because I was a huge fan of Terminator 2, and I think that that's the beginning of the end once we start giving the machines power over us. I'm kidding, of course. Those of you that know me know that I'm a huge movie fan, but I can't think about AI without thinking about the Cyberdyne Industries and the T1000. But no, I try to stay away from AI. I do see it is changing the way our business works. I mean, it's changing the way people communicate uh, because it's like, you're starting to see a pattern of uh, like, for lack of a better term, canned email responses from people that don't even know how to type. It's like I got members here at the club, or the guy's, in his late 60s, he owns a plumbing business, and he's sending me this big email about his steak dinner last night, and it's like he didn't. There's no way he wrote that. But no, I'm not. I'm not wrapping my hands around AI. I do see that you know there are so many ways to making. I think Eric Lohman does a really good job of it too, because he's a general manager of Monarch Beach, and he gets probably anywhere from 50 to 100 emails a day, and he's got uh, he I don't think I think he uses ChatGPT to form a lot of the responses to those emails, and it saves him probably an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. Where I'm kind of, I'm the negative end of that, where it's like no matter what I'm doing here around the club, if I'm away from my office all day long and I come back to 50 emails, usually that tacks on another 2 hours of work at my workstation in my office before I go home. But for me, that pounding out the emails myself, reading each email, replying to it, like I said, because I'm not a rocket scientist. That action is what ties me close to my job, and it's
Yep.
like that's why I help out on the floor, because it brings me closer to the operation. That's why I like to help. Courtney score tournaments for our members because it brings me closer to that side of our operation. But again, that goes back to the choice that I made. Yes, it makes what a lot of general managers can do effectively in an 8-hour day. For me, that's 12 to 13 hours for me to do the same amount of efficiency, just because that's what it takes for me for me to stay close to my job and feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like
Yep.
the for me, the balance goes back to the choices I make in working in this industry. I find personally that in the weeks where I work 40 hours, those are the more stressful weeks for me than the weeks that I work 80 hours. When I
Right.
work 80 hours, I feel like, hey, I've got this dialed in. I'm on top of this. I'm on top of that. I've got a good outlook for this. I've wrapped up that. I've got my hands around this thing. When I throw in a vacation day or when I go fishing in May, and I only work 40 hours a given week or less, I I lose my grip on things. I
Well, and I
feel
think
like I don't have
everyone
my
has
hands
like,
around it.
yeah, and everyone has this like, I think we're in this world, unfortunately or fortunately, depends on what your opinion is, I guess, but you work 40 hours, you put in a full week, but for a lot of us, and I feel the same way, like 40 hours is not enough sometimes because just the mindset of I only worked 40 hours, but there's so much more work on top of that. So like when you get back, what are you getting, like when you take that vacation even, right? Like you know you're supposed to relax, but a lot of us, because again, we're human and a majority of us work full time. You just think about the work that you're coming back to, right? So it almost just makes us feel better when we work those extra hours. So yeah, totally get it. But John, I will still say, even though I say, AI is definitely a tip, like I'm not fully, into it too. Like I would prefer to sit and answer all of my emails instead of having AI type that. I've just leaned into it a little bit more from like an operational side, I guess, like on the admin side, where I'm like helping me instead of me doing the brain work on, how long a station should be when I have 16 kids of however many groups, right? When we're doing, like I mentioned, the Team California camp, it was just nice to be able to not have to sit there and like do all the math in my head and what's going to work well and including breaks. So in that sense, AI has really helped me. Again, even if it's just in small pieces, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer with how much you engage with it. But if it helps you save a little bit of time, and again, for me, it's to be efficient, it was helpful. So,
So you
that
talk
is,
about, it's a good segue into our last bullet for our conversation, setting personal boundaries. And that goes back to making the choice that yes, I've got another 20 hours worth of work I need to do this week, but I've got a personal boundary I'm going to set. I'm done. I've worked 50 hours a week. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to pick it up next week, and I'm going to have the rest of this week for personal time. How do you like me? That sounds crazy to me. I can't do that. I need to get this done because I want to feel like everything I have on my plate I get done every single day because I don't even know what's coming on my plate tomorrow. How do
yep.
you set those personal boundaries, Junko?
So trust me, it's been really hard. But once, and I'm sure John, you can definitely relate, especially having four children. But right now with having a 3-year-old, whether I liked it or not, I had to accept it and kind of accept the stress and the anxiety I get. So the one thing since having my daughter, I think I've been really good at, and sometimes I will also admit I fail. Again, at 5 o'clock, because my daughter goes to school 3 days a week, and when she's not in school, we have a nanny that leaves at 5. And when she does go to school, we have to pick her up at 5. So I kind of have this in my mind, I have this hard stop at 5 every day. Yes, I am on my phone. I'm looking at my emails every so often, but with a 3-year-old especially, like she needs my attention. Like as soon as she walks in the door, as soon as the nanny leaves, she wants mommy, 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 or daddy, daddy, daddy. And so I've tried to make it a point to like put my phone down, whether I just leave it on the kitchen counter and I spend some time with my daughter. Um, again, yes, I look at my phone every now and then to see what emails have come through since after 5. And I kind of ask myself, is this important? Can it wait till tomorrow morning? Is this pressing? So I kind of go through that motion. Obviously pre-kids, it was really easy to just answer or even sit at my computer for an extra hour or two um, each day. But I will say it's not easy, not easy at all. And like we just said, right, in my mind, even though I'm trying to commit to, okay, a little bit of a hard stop at 5, I think about the next day and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got this going on, this going on, this going on, and I still have 25 emails that maybe I didn't get to today that I couldn't respond to, or I couldn't call this person back today. And so yeah, it's hard, but I think again, it's also teaching yourself to just accept it. It's it's part of life. But when you're making a choice, because I don't want to also be that parent who's going to be like on your cell phone in front of your kid when your kid's trying to play with you. Like, to me, that's not great. And there's a few times, and again, I don't think Blair will mind me saying this, but I think Blair struggles with that a little bit. But again, I know he's kind of at the club's, the club needs him like every minute sometimes. And even after when he's home, and he's in a ton of, John, you can probably relate to being at a high-end private club, like he's in a ton of group texts with his members, because maybe some of his members don't understand, just boundaries. And so his phone is blowing up all the time and he's always looking at his phone. And, there are times where I have to be like, Blair, like, dinner time, like let's put the phones away, right? So it's still a work in progress, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's
And
not. And you're painting a really clear picture. And how do you as the spouse keep from developing animosity towards that? Because of course, you're of course you're grateful that he's got this great job at this great club, and the club does so many great things for him and for the family. And I know you're grateful, but how do you maintain that empathy without becoming bitter as a spouse?
that's a great question, John. It's hard. It's hard. There are nights I won't lie and I'll be completely silent and I won't say anything, but I think because at the end of the day, Blair and I try to communicate, or, if I'm frustrated with something, I won't actually, get mad in that moment, but maybe once we put Macy down, I'll say something like, "Hey, like I'm not trying to say don't do this or, whatever it is, but like this is how this situation made me feel, right? So just in the future, I would like to just have you be more aware of it. And I think that is really important. It's easier said than done. I don't know if most couples do that or not. Like you said, I'm very lucky. I think most of you or any of you who do know my husband, I think one of the first things you'll say is he's such an even keel, calm guy. He never gets upset. And I'm very much like the opposite. I feel like I'm the more emotional person in our household. So he's very patient with me. He understands like I have these moments of like I need to have, whether it's like verbal diarrhea, vomit of like my emotions and my feelings. So I think we just have this mutual understanding. And but yeah, it's not, I mean, I don't have the answer to that, John. I don't know how to keep that at bay.
So I'm getting this out of this conversation. Two emotional people with no empathy for the other person is a recipe for disaster. Got it. Well, you must be doing something right with Macy because at the president's dinner, which we had here at the club last month, Macy sat there through the entire evening, and she was just an angel. And she's three. And that was a 3.5 hour awards dinner
Yes.
that she
Well,
sat there through. I mean, like I said, I've got a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and there's no way they could even sit through 45 minutes of that dinner.
I mean, thank
So,
goodness for iPad. And no, we don't usually let our daughter sit in front of an iPad for that long. But we both wanted to be there. Again, those are some like conversations we do have. Like, to be completely candid, when the emails and the invites came out for the president's dinner, we both got one because I'm, part of PGA of America and support section, and so got invited as a guest. And Blair is a board member for the Metro chapter, so he got invited. And when we both got the email, literally, I send a text to him and I say, "Hey, I got invited to the president's dinner," and he's like, "Yep, I did too. What do you want to do? Right? Do we want to get childcare? Do we not?" And we just made this decision of, is it worth paying for a babysitter just to be able to go, mingle and socialize with some of our fellow golf professionals. But, I think we have our child at bay as long as we have an iPad and we give her a little bit of a night of a treat where she can sit in front of a screen for longer than she normally does. But those are like the real conversations we have. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth to pay for a babysitter, or, one of us stay home? Like, what benefits, what choices are we making? Kind of going back to that. So
do the
yeah, I
two
just
do you and Macy have a presence at Rolling Hills as his spouse and his child? Are you there
Yes,
often for
we
events?
definitely try Saturdays. So as I'm sure many of my job is for the most part Monday to Friday, if you will. Obviously, there's some weekends where I'm definitely working, but Blair being at a green grass facility, and since having Macy, he's been really good about taking at least one weekend day off, which is Sunday. And then Monday the club is naturally closed, but he actually does go in because I'm sure, as you can imagine, when you don't have members knocking at your office door every day, like Monday's a nice day to go in and get uninterrupted work done. But so Saturdays is, as long as I'm not traveling for work, Saturdays is a mommy Macy day. And so Saturdays are usually kind of the days that we'll hang out in the morning at the house. And then sometimes for lunch, we end up going out and we do little mommy daughter lunch dates. But I will take her to the club some Saturdays to do that, whether if it's not the club, obviously another restaurant. So we do have a presence there. I try not to take advantage of it because, again, we are not necessarily members, but we do have some membership benefits. But ask me how many times I've played Rolling Hills this last year. I think it's twice. So, again, as you know, I try not to take advantage of it, but I do love that the membership welcomes us. I think, like you said earlier, I'm very grateful for the club. And Blair has been there, I think, now for 18 years. Like he started his career there and has gone through every position there to become the director of golf. So I always kind of joke when I say this, and he was born and raised here in PV, so he's kind of like the king of the hill, if you will. Jim Gormley might be upset if I say that, but he wasn't born and raised here. So, whether we go out locally, like everyone knows him. So the membership, absolutely. I mean, I think loves him. He's been there for so long, and now that we are adding another child to our family. Everyone's so excited for us. And the club has also in the last few years since renovations have become such a family-oriented club. We have a kids club, there's, pool, spa, gym. So it's just been really nice to have that access. And like some of the things we were talking about earlier, John, like a work commute, we live less than a mile from the club. So at the end of the day, even though Blair works long hours, it's nice to be as close as we are because if I do really need something, he can come home right away and it's easy for him.
It is not. It is nice to have that 1 mile commute because like I said, I know a golf professional that lives in West Covina and commutes to Bakersfield. I know a bunch of guys that live in the metro area that drive to the desert. I know two guys. I know one guy that lives in Placentia and drives to Rancho Santa Fe. I know another guy that lives in Temecula and drives to Hacienda Heights. So, there's a lot of really crazy commutes out there. Um, uh, it's interesting you talk about how Blair appreciates going in on Mondays. I love coming in on Mondays, even though I don't need to because it's a great catch-up day and it makes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday all the easier to come in Monday, even if we don't have a tournament. A lot of times we come in for the tournament just to be there for the tournament as well. But again, it goes back to that. That's a choice that I make. I'm choosing to work those 5 extra hours on Monday because it makes life easier for me and the things that I want.
Yep.
So.
Well, and you asked about like, how to prevent animosity. Oh, trust me, especially once we had Macy, I remember there was a point where I got really upset and annoyed because he has a Monday day off. Or, in a sense, whether he's choosing to go into work or not, I'm like, you at least get one full day off to yourself. I was like, me as a mother and my being a full-time employee, like I have no days off.
Right.
Absolutely none, because Saturdays, like I mentioned, is always going to be like a mommy Macy day. Yes, Blair makes it a point to go in super early, so maybe he can come home by like 2 or 3, but it's still a full day that I have, being a single parent for, a few hours. And then Sunday, yes, someone can say that's technically my day off because Blair is home and he's helping around the house. But to me, we've designated Sunday as like family day, right? Like that is our one day off altogether. In the beginning, when I felt like, Blair, you get like a full day off. Like you get full 8 hours off, whether you want to choose to work or not, but like you get 8 hours off of your child where you don't have to worry about it. Um, not again, not whether whoever the default parent is, it's not always on the mom, but like I'm doing all the doctor's appointments for myself and my kid these days, right? So, I won't lie, a few weeks ago, especially the start of the year, Macy had a bunch of checkups. Since I'm pregnant, I have my own fair share of doctor's appointments. And I felt like the first week back from to work, I had to almost take like 3 half days and it was stressful. So, and things come up with Macy's school. There's parent activities, and I finally, like the week after, I finally had to be like, Blair, like I need you to like take a half day at work this week because I need help because there's no way, within 2 weeks of, a work week, I can take 6 half days. Like that's just not sustainable for me. And my fulfillment of my career and my job position. So again, I think it just goes back to that communication, right? And it's not, and no, our marriage, I would say, is like not perfect when it comes to communicating, but I think we've both learned through the years that we need to be able to, freely talk about that and like talk through things, even if it becomes one of us is compromising something, right? And we have to accept that. And I think having our second child will bring new challenges, and that's why earlier too, if your goals and what you want change, that's okay. When we talk about work-life balance, that's okay, but commit to yourself and make these little changes. Like whether we talked about AI, if that's going to help make you be a little more efficient, save you a few minutes here and there so you can spend some more time with family or maybe go play more golf, right? 'Cause John, yeah, we all got into this business because we loved playing golf. And I know you said you were, 50, turning 51 or whatever. I'm not that much younger than you. And going to a PGM, fellow PGM graduate from Methodist, I think we all have this mentality of like, we're going to play a lot of golf. And maybe we did, especially for those of us who got graduated from PGM schools and we may have been, single or obviously no kids, no big responsibilities yet. And even in that, like my life has changed since I moved out here as a full-time PGA member, my first full-time job. Yeah, I was playing a lot of golf and shockingly enough, now 16, 17 years ago that I moved out here, I was a big competitor in our women's section championship, like, and that was a goal of mine to become the women's player of the year back in the day. And since then, I've had different life changes, good ones, things that I'm proud of that golf, becoming player of the year and things like that have taken a backseat, and that's okay. You don't see me competing so much these days on our section events, unfortunately, especially the stroke play, because how often am I practicing or playing? Not not very much. So, you'll see me playing in some team events because I'm at the point right now in my life where if I'm gonna go play, I just want to play for fun. I want to play for vacation. Like last August, I went on a girls' trip to Bandon Dunes, which has been a bucket list of mine. So I like doing those things right now, and not to say once our kids are a little older and maybe a little more self-sufficient, that'll change and I'll come back and I'll play in the women's section championship again and compete a little bit more. But right now, it's just not a priority, and that's okay. And I think everyone goes through different, changes in their life that your priorities change.
Certainly. Well, having children certainly does that. Nothing tests the fabric of a relationship than having a child or two or three or four. Junko, that's going to conclude all the time that we have today. On behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA and Digital Revenue Systems, want to really thank you for coming on. This catalyst originally was going to be led by Blake Jurgis. Blake had something come up last minute, and Junko was able to jump in and fill in. And we're really grateful for your spontaneity. And thank you for speaking extemporaneously with me for the last hour. And those of you that are on this morning's call, you will receive one PDR credit, education credit for being on this morning. And we will be sending out an acknowledgement here with the YouTube recording of our time together. I want to thank everybody for supporting the Catalyst webinar series. And thank you, Junko. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great weekend. And don't work too hard.
Thanks, John. Thank you, everyone.
See ya.